time, slightly belatedly, to meet our guest today. She is Dawn Tebbett, and she's the boss. And I say that because she's the boss of an engineering company. Is that as rare as I think it is?
I think it is quite rare, actually. I haven't met many other female bosses of engineering companies in my travels.
Has it made it more difficult for you then to stamp your authority?
It did initially when I first joined the company, but with our own workforce, I came in as a boss's daughter, which isn't always well received.
But they got over it, did they?
They did get over it eventually, and I think they've now taken me under their wing and welcomed me in the fold, or not.
Did you ever have one of those awful moments when somebody rang up and said, "Oh, can I speak to the boss?" And they said, "I'll put you through," and you answered the phone, and a man on the other end said, "Oh, is your boss in?" Thinking that you may have been his secretary answering the phone.
No, but it does have other advantages, because when some people phone up, you can be the cleaner or the tea maker.
So you play this game with them, do you?
You can play this game, yes.
So what got you into it? I mean, you got a BSc in geotechnical engineering. A layman like me has no idea what that is, so tell me that for starters.
Geotechnical engineering is foundation engineering, so it's a discipline of civil engineering. My father was an engineer, and so was my grandfather. So I had, I suppose, a natural affinity towards engineering, and I studied physics, maths and geology A-level, and went on and did a degree in London, as I was determined I wasn't going to join the family company.
And then one day,
then one day.
So I mean, was there sort of a bit of indoctrination, do you think? I mean, was it just because you were always around this sort of work?
I think it was that was a subconscious thing. In fact, my father always told me never to be an engineer, to go and get a proper job. It was something I wanted. I felt very passionate about, and I wanted to do it myself.
Do you think that, I mean, your choice at A-level then, which led you down this path, was this because it was all around you, rather than the fact that one day you thought, hey, this is interesting, I think I will do it? Yes,
I always had a leaning more towards the sciences. I found them easier and more interesting. So that's where I made my A-level choices. The geology was something I was quite passionate about. In fact, at the time, it was more difficult to get a job being a geologist as a woman than it was being an engineer.
And I mean, when you were at university then, I mean, were you the only girl in the class, for goodness sake?
I think there were two of us.
Two?
Yes, and another girl, Jackie, from Trinidad, actually.
Yeah.
I was the only British student there.
Really? And I mean, did you? I mean, I don't want to harp on about this unnecessarily, but I mean, did you take a lot of ribbing from these men around you?
When I started,
I suspect you could have stood your corner though.
When I started, you learnt to stand your corner. I had a rude awakening when I started working in the civil engineering industry, because, as you can imagine, out on construction sites, that wasn't necessarily female friendly. But so you you learnt to fit in.
I suppose when you got the boots and the hat and the big coat on, it wasn't until you got up close that they realised you were not one of them, as it were.
It did have certain advantages, though. If you needed some help with something, or you wanted to borrow some plant, or you'd go and ask very nicely, you'd soon get a JCB driver to come and dig you a hole.
So you did turn it to your advantage somewhere.
You can turn it to your advantage, yes. Yeah.
But you were okay with the strong tea and maybe the strong language on site, were you?
You got used to that, yes, quite quickly. That was all part of it. Although after the first few years, I worked for Tarmac initially in Wolverhampton, and that was more site-based, and then moved to working for consulting engineers. So that's more of an office-based with only occasional site visits.
You mentioned at the start that one of the things was you were the boss's daughter. But I mean, you had the credentials, didn't you? It wasn't as though you were coming in and shouldn't be there.
Well, it was a complete change of discipline to come to Sandfield, because I was, as I say, a foundations engineer. So to come to an engineering business was a complete different field. So of course, when I came in, I knew nothing at all about the industry. So I had a very steep learning curve. So
how did you cope with that then?
Well, I worked on the factory floor. That was the best and the quickest way to learn.
Right.
So I learnt to work the different machines, worked on the presses and drilling holes, and at times he sent me out to use the spot welder, so I just could understand the different processes. Because my role when I came to Sandfield was sales, so I was the one that had to go out and sell the product. So for me, not being a natural salesperson, I had to totally understand the product to be able to go and talk to people about it.
How long did that take then to really get a grip of it?
It seemed a long time ago now. That's quite quickly, I think. First 12 months was a very steep learning curve. Being a smaller business, you're actually involved very much with the production of the goods as well, and that obviously helps you learn so that you can discuss with customers sort of every detail of what they need to know.
So for a year at least, there were no well manicured nails. Then it was dirty fingernails, chipped fingernails, was it?
I still don't think I have well manicured nails.
I'm hesitating to look and see. They look fine from here. But I mean, that was part of it, wasn't it, really? I mean, was it the acceptance? Because there came a point at which people went, oh, yeah, fine, right, okay. Dawn's okay, we'll accept her.
Yes, I do. I mean, with sales, it's you get judged on results. So when you start to bring the work in, then you start to command the respect of other people. And that's what it took. It took me bringing work into them, and they could see I was actually earning my corn.
I suppose really people expect engineering companies to be in the Black Country and in Birmingham, and there are you out in the relative splendour and countryside of Stourport-on-Severn.
The company's always been here. It's our 50-year anniversary. We started on the outskirts of Kidderminster, and I think moved to our current site in about 1972. Difficult to move. Now you're based there, or your staff are located there, and it's a nice part of the country. Yeah,
indeed. We've talked quite a bit about how you got into this and your degree, which is in geotechnical engineering, I should say. Do girls today want to work in this sort of industry? I thought they all wanted to marry footballers, become wags, or work in makeup. Well, that's probably an awful generalisation, but I don't imagine it's got a lot of people wanting to come into it.
You see more women engineers on the shop floor than you did when I joined sort of 20 years ago, but still it's very much a minority. I think women have the perception that it's sort of working grubby factories and grubby machines, and of course it's just not like that these days. Well, not generally.
Yeah.
And I think we went through a period where it was difficult to get anybody to go into engineering, but I think with all the new apprenticeship schemes, there has been an increase in youngsters wanting to become engineers, which can only be good. And along with that, there should be more women as well. And
are there still plenty of species who want to go into engineering?
More now, much more now. It's easier to recruit. Small company, harder to keep people because there's so many more opportunities these days.
And is this, I mean, are we talking apprenticeship schemes and things like that, or are they going to college and then university before they come on to you?
I mean, it's both. I mean, we've got a number of apprentices at Sandfield, and we actively encourage people to go on schemes. The college courses I'm not so sure about, but the industry itself is very buoyant at the moment.
What's the sort of mindset of somebody who comes into this sort of job? I mean, what are their interests? What's led them to want to come and do it, do you think?
I mean, sometimes it's their parents' backgrounds. A bit like myself, it's a sort of a natural transition. Others, they like working with their hands, really. They like making things. And that leads them into engineering.
And I suppose as well, if you get into it and you show an aptitude and an interest, then there is a real, you can make huge progress, can't you, and be very innovative.
Yes, and I mean, there are quite a lot of opportunities, for people starting, if they start working on the factory floor, to actually progress and go into design and different aspects. So there are huge opportunities within engineering, and it's been one of the more buoyant sectors over the last few years. With the growth of Jaguar Land Rover has helped all the suppliers in the West Midlands.
Yes, I mean, and when you get closures of things like this, and I mean we've heard of some in the recent past. I mean, it's the knock-on effect, isn't it, that when something goes down, it's not just that company.
No, I mean, we got caught up in the MG Rover closures a few years ago, and I mean, fortunately for us, it wasn't too dramatic because we supply equipment on the front end when they're tooling new lines. But I mean, it was devastating for some of the companies. I mean, they just lost all their work almost overnight.
What sort of business is it abroad? We talked earlier about all the countries you've been to. Sorry, workforce don't know that, do they? With all the places you might have been to, and you know, you've been out there and you've set up a factory in India. What sort of things have we got as an expertise in this country that people around the world still want?
I think we do ourselves down, really. We don't take credit for our engineering ability. I mean, there's a huge wealth of knowledge and depth of experience that you just don't see in other countries. And so Britain sort of stands out amongst many other countries, and I don't think we shout about it enough, to be honest.
No, I think you're absolutely right. What about government? I mean, do you do you feel that you get enough support from them in whatever area it may be?
Not terribly. I mean, I think the manufacturing voice has never been very strong, and the government don't seem to support manufacturing terribly well.
Do you think is that based on the fact that they think, oh, you know, it's all new technology, it's all IT, that's where we should be going, rather than realising that there is still a good and strong and very capable base in your line of work?
I don't think government, they don't really understand manufacturing and the amount of jobs it creates. So they've never supported us over the years. Yes, they look to IT, but still there's lots of potential to develop our manufacturing industry more, and they should do.
You were the only lady at that business. I mean, did you find when you went around, and I know you were selling in the early days and what have you, what sort of reaction did you get from other companies?
I think to make the initial appointment, being a woman is actually an advantage, because if you ring up most chaps, you can normally charm your way in. When you get there, you obviously, I think, have to be more competent and really know your stuff, because you're not always well received.
Were any of them actually, did you think, trying to trip you up just to see what you did?
Most definitely.
Really?
You have to be quite well briefed. I think, which is why I appreciated the time I spent on the shop floor, and I felt I had to understand what we were making and selling more in depth than my male counterparts, I believe.
Yeah. So I know it was a family business that you could go into. Were there ever times when you thought to yourself, why have I done this? I ought to be somewhere else, not doing this and not doing it here?
Quite often. I used to remind my father quite regularly that I gave up a perfectly well-paid job to come back and work with them. So,
were you the son he never had then?
My father and I were very close,
Yeah.
But my brother and I do actually run the business.
Oh, right. So
Yes,
there is one in there as well.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
He's the sensible one.
So there's no getting away from anybody in that, is there? Now, you are a published author. And when I checked this out, I can tell you that I found out that the book you had written is called Taking the Stress Out of Clamping. My initial reaction, of course, was, silly boy that I am, that we were talking about clamping cars. But what does taking the stress out of clamping actually mean?
Well, when you look at the range of different clamps we make, it's over 1,000. To actually choose which clamp you need for your particular application is a bit of a minefield. So the idea behind the book was to help you sort of feel your way and find the appropriate clamp. And if you can't, give us a call and we'll help you.
So it's like a sort of handy hints, but not too much information. You wanted them to get back to you.
I really want them to talk to us, to be honest, because people often think they just need a simple clamp. But in many areas, they need something more than clamping, which is where our company is strong, really, and where we like to where we can help people. So what we want them to do is get them on the phone, really, and come and talk to us about their problems and see if we can help them.
We were talking in the break about all the places you've been and all the travel. So obviously, Sandfield Engineering's name is known worldwide.
Yes, I should think we've supplied clamps and equipment to most regions of the world. I mean, I've travelled to Korea, to Australia, to India, throughout Europe, to Iran, before the Troubles. We have a factory in India, so I set that up about 7 or 8 years ago, so I used to travel a lot within India. So yes, I've seen a lot of the world.
There are perks within your job then, aren't there? It's not all shop floor and dirty hands. I mean, hey, you've got to travel the world.
Don't tell the people at work that.
No,
way.
no, of course not. No. What reaction did you find when you were going around the world? I mean, did people think you'd come to sort of pave the way, and the big boss will be on his way one day, until you show them a card that says on it MD?
Yes, I always like to put on my business card the fact that I've got an engineering degree, so they actually think there's some depth to your knowledge, you're not just a figurehead. Um, the agents like you to go to the overseas countries to present to them because just to help back them up, really.
And do you find, I mean, is it the sort of industry where you're endlessly having to make sure you are up to date with what's going on? Because if you're not, as a business, you could get left behind.
Well, very much so. We're always inventing, innovating, looking for new products. Yes, there's a constant strive to do things better. And that's driven by our customers, really, because they have to increase their production time, so they're always looking to us to help us find them solutions, really.
Just very briefly, we're always hearing from people who say, oh, we get undercut by companies from around the world. Is that the case with you or not?
Very much so, very much so. I mean, hence our the factory in India. We source lots of parts from China.
Yeah.
When we first looked at India, I think people were concerned it might affect their jobs, but actually it's strengthened the company.
I suppose one of the things that you as a business have got to do is you've got to try and be one step ahead. You've got to be innovative, and then you've got to invest.
Yes, we have to invest, you have to diversify, you have to look for other markets. Like I was saying to you before, we were almost completely dependent on the automotive industry, and now we've probably only about 60% of our work goes into the automotive. It goes into other sectors.
And you were saying that you've got a new little gadget. I'm sure you wouldn't call it a gadget, but I do, for water pollution.
Yes, I mean, that's one of our main focuses has been pollution containment systems. It's quite sort of a buzzword at the moment. Working with factories, industrial sites to contain any pollution events. So should you have a fire in your factory and the nice fire brigade come and spray water everywhere, they'll be washing all the nasty chemicals down the drains and straight into the rivers. So we've designed a product that actually fits into the drains and can seal the whole site. So if they have an incident, it can link in with the fire alarms and it shuts the whole site off to give you time to get the tankers in to pump the chemicals out.
And you said that you could actually do this from your phone.
You can do this from your phone, you can do this web-based, where you can push a button.
So when you're not, I won't say getting your hands dirty anymore because that's slightly changed a little bit, how on earth do you begin to relax, I wonder? Apart from getting away from all these men who surround you all day and every day.
Well, I probably get my hands even dirtier. My passion is my carriage driving, and I do competitive trials driving. So that's how I try and spend my weekends.
So that's the bit of the danger side of it. You were saying, I mean, I mentioned that Prince Philip, I know, has been a great one, and he was one of the foremost drivers, no pun intended, of all of this.
Yes, I think he was the founder members of the sport. I think it was back in the early 80s. It's based on 3-day eventing lines and ridden equestrian, and now extremely popular up and down the country.
So what got you into it then?
I used to ride as a child, and I went out to live in Hong Kong, sold all my horses. When I came back, I thought, what next? Let's play with ponies, they're more fun.
Which is kind of brings the wheel round to your work, doesn't it? Your life really is what next. That's what you have to be thinking about for the business, isn't it?
Yes, it's constantly how do we move the business forward? How do we secure our future? What happens next?
Yeah. So the day when Dad says, "Look, come and run this company for me," it turned out to be a good one, didn't it? In the end.
I think so. Yes.
You weren't too sure at the time, but it seems to have worked out. Dawn Tebbett, who's Managing Director of Sandfield Engineering, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
I've learned all sorts of things I had no idea about because I'm the least technical person the world has ever seen. But he's laughing in my ear, is Tom. I don't know why. See you again after the break.